Well, I haven't met Casey, but Casey is here to tell us about a new program that BDCC started. I'm not sure how new, on the Welcome Wagon. So Casey, it's your show.
All right. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Before I really jump in, I will just throw a link in the chat here for you in case you want to do a little exploration while I provide some context. So that's the link to the Welcome Wagon project. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation and the economic development strategies that we implement, but just so that I'm providing this context. So we're one of Vermont's 12 regional economic development organizations doing, standard economic development, entrepreneurship, small business support, all of those sorts of things. But because the region's identified economic development strategies are also involve workforce and bringing more people to the area, that is sort of where I fit in. So I am the talent specialist here. I do talent recruitment, talent retention. I am just sort of a general facilitator of connections to community resources and employers in the area. So my background is, and I won't be very thorough, but essentially my background is kind of a hodgepodge combination of social services and a little bit of marketing, but it's all been in the nonprofit realm. And so the opportunity to really think about how you build a more robust, sort of welcoming kind of community is something that's been really exciting for me the last just over a year now that I've been at BDCC. So with that sort of context out of the way, I'll tell you a little bit more about the Welcome Wagon program in general. Then I'll leap into kind of how we've been operating, like what we've done, what it looks like with the process, and then I'll share a little bit about my hopes for the future for the program. So the Vermont Welcome Wagon project is an initiative that was started it was started in Chittenden County by an all volunteer leadership team. It was then brought to the Northeast Kingdom, and then this summer and into the fall, the leadership team at the Welcome Wagon project reached out to us here at BDCC and talked to us a little bit about the program. We said, wow, that's a perfect fit for what we do. So we went into high gear, kind of getting all the pieces set, and then we launched in the fall. So what I will do is I'll kind of give you a little a sense for how people typically can find the Welcome Wagon project. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Maybe if you want to, I think I maybe need access to share my screen. Would someone be able to make me co-host so I can? Awesome. Cool. Thank you. All right. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the computer screen here. Excellent. So this is one way to find the Welcome Wagon project. This is my sort of internal plug. This Vermont website is an existing asset, but one that we are currently developing. So that's one way to kind of connect with the project. A lot of it has been through word of mouth, but we've actually been really excited at how much publicity we've been getting and attention we've been getting from other agencies. In fact, if you go to the statewide program for relocation, there's resources for new Vermonters that takes you right to it. So we've had people come into the program who were looking at state websites to try and figure out how to update information at the DMV. So we're really starting to see a little bit of traction with this. So here's the website. You can kind of navigate through it. It's got some great imagery. We're really excited about it. So what it looks like is participants will go in and click on the form, which takes you here. Fill out a little bit, so participants fill out a little bit of information about themselves, and actually the people who are hosts who ultimately get matched together with the newcomers all fill out the same form. So it's a pretty straightforward little form. We're really excited to have added some additional resources for specific demographics, LGBTQ resources, BIPOC, young professionals, to really allow people to opt into the kinds of things that they would love to be connected to into the community. So in Brattleboro, for instance, when people check that little box as newcomers, we put them in touch with someone over at Out in the Open. And so those kinds of connections with really localized community resources is something that we're really excited about. So once you fill out the form, kind of what happens next? Both the participants, so if you were to sign up as a host by filling out that form, then every month we send out a newsletter. It looks, ooh, I might have to, a little zoom is getting in the way here. There we go. So this is what that newsletter looks like that comes out every month. We just had one go out last week. It has a nice little introduction. It's sort of a creative writing outlet for myself and our Bennington partners who also help run this project. So we do a little introduction, kind of a fun little, like, here's some Vermont trivia, that kind of thing. And then you have a list of the biographies of the folks who are new in the area. And so you can kind of look and see who's new, what are their interests. And then when you see someone that you said, oh, that person, we both love to go hike, or we both enjoy horseback riding. You can go in, click the email us to get connected button, let us know who you'd like to be connected with, and then we send an email introduction with both parties. So at that point, the two folks are connected and then can decide whether they want to just go get a coffee together, maybe have a phone call, go on a hike, invite each other out for dinner. So it's a little bit, it's sort of really adaptable to what people's needs and interests are. So that's sort of the overview of the process. As you can imagine, during COVID times, the connections have been a little bit more difficult. So we've been relying on plugging our Welcome Wagon folks into some of the events, for instance, that our young professional organization has been hosting. That being said, we've had 40 new Vermonters sign up in the region for the Welcome Wagon, and we've made over 26 of those introductory emails and connections to hosts. So we've been taking it a little bit slowly just because we want to make sure that we do it really well and that we're serving people really well. But even despite that, the sort of slow rollout and the difficulties of the COVID time, we've been actually really excited about the traffic that we've seen and the results so far. So it's been a really great initiative so far. There's some great social media content that goes out to folks that people can sign up for, just sort of really talks about all the great things that are in Vermont. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're in the process of building out, we're getting more folks to be hosts in the area, continuing to make connections. As far as the future goes, I think there's a lot of potential. It's a really flexible platform for it to be able to really engage people in the community, both newcomers and the enthusiastic locals. And so we've been doing partnerships with people in the Deerfield Valley, for instance, really helping to direct newcomers into their more localized welcoming efforts. So they've been doing some newcomer events. There's the executive director of Next Stage Arts in Putney has been doing welcoming events, and we've been supporting him with that. And so those sorts of partnerships in the community are the kinds of things that we would love to really expand with in the next few months, especially as things reopen, it gets a little bit easier to meet in person with folks. The sort of other side of that is, and this is the more like economic development part of it, is ultimately the Welcome Wagon is a tool for keeping people engaged in the community so that they can build roots, get to know people, and ultimately want to stay and build a life in the area, stay in the area. And so at the sort of tail end of it, it's a workforce retention tool. To that end, we have materials for employers in the region. So we would love to be able, the vision that I have for this is to be able to include what you see on your screen here is an example of just some of our employer materials that we would love to include in their onboarding packets for their new employees. And so we're really kind of in conversations with people in human resources, small employers, larger employers, to really give them an extra tool in their toolbox to help make sure that the folks that they are recruiting to the region or are hiring are feeling really welcomed into the community. So with my long spiel concluded, I will kind of turn the floor open to anyone who may have questions about it.
Well, I'll jump in. I have followed what Next Stage has been doing with welcoming neighbors, and I think it's really terrific. I think that's a great opportunity for an institution to welcome new neighbors. And so I applaud you for that. About what's the time commitment if you agree to to be a host and you want to greet somebody? Can you just say, look, I only want to greet up to 3 families a year, and that's it? Or I only want to greet somebody on a one-time only basis? Or how does it work for the match?
Yeah, the nice thing about it is every month as a host, you would receive those emails with the newcomers in there. And at that time, you can decide, oh, well, this month, maybe I want to reach out to 5 people, which we have had some hosts do. And so it really puts it onto the host to really say, not really feeling it this month, and that's totally fine. You don't have to, there's no real commitment to it. You can kind of be as engaged with it as you like, but every month we'll send you that newsletter of new folks and a little nudge to encourage you to jump in and welcome some people.
And just another institutional question. The museum offers an opportunity for the staff and the board to give out any number of family memberships. Is it possible for me to just figure out how to enroll anybody who's new to the area in your program so they automatically get a membership to the museum when they come to town?
Oh, that's a great idea. I would love to, maybe we can talk online and figure out the logistics of that.
Well, the mechanics would come through our operations manager. And we're just switching over this week between somebody who was running upstairs who's coming down to run the office now. So, maybe I'll just put our Chelsea in touch with you, because I think if there was an easy way for her to just send out something, welcome, you're new to town, welcome to town, here's your welcome wagon, gift for the year from the Brattleboro Museum and Arts Center.
That's wonderful. This is exactly the kinds of partnerships that I'm looking to cultivate, for
Terrific.
Sure.
I'm putting you in touch with Chelsea.
Thank you.
So Casey, thank you for a great presentation. Some of you in the club may not be aware, but one of the biggest challenges right now for employers in Brattleboro is to find qualified employees. So, I look at this, Casey, as being another great arrow in the quiver. And BDCC is there to help promote business and the economy in the area. And a couple of us have been on the board involved for BDCC for a long time. Dart was a longtime member, and now he's kind of our institutional memory, even though he doesn't want to admit it. I'm still on that board, and Caroline was on the board for many years. So it really is a wonderful group of people that's absolutely dedicated to improving life in the area. So again, thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Phil.
Frank Rucker has his hand up.
Hi, Casey. Thank you. And kind of related to Phil's point there, you had mentioned I work with the school system here in Brattleboro, and you had mentioned that you're working on employer tools, and I was just curious, is it something to come, or is it something that's kind of ready for, you know, our HR folks to reach out to you and start that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually talked with Stacy over there, and we had a conversation both about the Welcome Wagon project and the Southern Vermont Young Professionals as both a way to kind of retain those young teachers that are there. We are, you know, I've been doing a little bit of that sort of passive outreach and connection with employers in the region. We're really on the back end here we're building up kind of a whole comprehensive package that includes both recruitment and retention for the region that we want to be able to pull out, to sort of hand on a silver platter to employers in the next 3-6 months. But certainly the Welcome Wagon materials are ready to go. We have those. We can either send the files over, or we can get a way to print them out directly if folks are interested in making sure that those are available for the new hires more immediately.
Good to hear, and I'm sure that you're aware, and just so the rest of our membership here is aware, you know, we have a relatively new school board as a result of the state of Vermont changing governance structures for public schools, and they've made it really clear, this new school board, that they're very interested in expanding the social diversity and equity initiative that also includes, obviously, in increasing employment and recruitment around our BIPOC group. So good to hear, and I know we have a lot of work to do to carry out the goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great segue into Carla's question that I noticed in the chat. What's the average demographic of the newcomers, or is it all over the place? I would say we are starting to get a little bit more diversity among some of the newcomers. We have some folks that have been referred by employers who have been connected to some of those community resources. We're reaching out to, for instance, the Root Social Justice Center. So we're trying to strengthen our ties to those additional resources, right? I can only provide so much in terms of what my lived experience can offer for more diverse newcomers. That being said, a lot of on the recruitment side of things that I've been doing, the Vermont State of State program that is designed to attract newcomers to the state. I think of it as the sort of the funnel into the Welcome Wagon project. That program that I've been running, I've had an incredible diversity of prospective newcomers to the state. I have a family that's coming from Puerto Rico that I'm working with to help get settled. And so once they actually make that move to the area, then I will sort of move them from my recruitment pipeline into the retention piece and plug them into the young professionals and the Welcome Wagon, and really help facilitate those community connections so they don't get here and think, oh, maybe this was a bad idea, right? We want to put them in touch with the right people so that as soon as they get here, they're welcomed with open arms and they know that they've made the right call, and this is they're excited about their new home. Excellent. So I see another question in the chat here from Martin. Is there a way to get newcomers aware of organizations like Rotary? That's a great question. So I would say we're really thinking through how we present employers and present community organizations and have those sorts of resources available for newcomers. That's something that's still a little bit up in the air, but something we're definitely is front of mind. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, Maggie.
I was just writing it in the chat, but it'll be quicker for me to just say it. I'm just wondering if the governor's initiative for welcoming immigrants into the state of Vermont has a formal or informal tie that dovetails in with the Welcome Wagon and connecting them to communities.
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting experience doing that stay-to-stay recruitment aspect. We've actually had a lot of folks from like Latin America be interested in the program, and I struggle through with my limited college Spanish every once in a while, but I've had some conversations with some great conversations with folks, and unfortunately I'm limited in the tools that I have to help, but I'm really excited to be able to put them in touch with my colleague, Alex, who is running our Welcoming Communities programs here. So he is doing a lot of work around, building up that community infrastructure to be able to welcome those immigrant populations. And so once those more systemic structures are built to be able to bring them in, that's sort of where then I step in, and I'm more of the sort of boots on the ground, help introduce them to people, facilitate connections, and the ability to access resources here. Excellent. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh. Yeah, I just want to point out in the chat from Lisa CASP, CASP, the Community Asylum Seekers Project is our local community for asylum seekers, mostly from Central America. And yeah, so that's something that, again, my colleague Alex has been very involved with. And so I certainly will be leaning on him to make sure that our activities are very much in alignment.
Well, I may be the only person who remembers this little tidbit, but this year BDCC is celebrating its 65th anniversary. And I know it because it was founded in 1956, the same year I was born. So it sticks in my head. Same year the town won the best small town in America because of the opening of Living Memorial Park.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mentioned that my background is in a little bit in marketing, and perhaps it was a little bit of not exaggeration, but a distillation of the work that I was doing. I was working at the New England Center for Circus Arts, and so a lot of what I was doing involved talking with circus artists from around the country and around the world and saying, oh, what is special about Brattleboro? What are the things that you're going to do outside of training while you're here? Like, how are you going to spend a weekend and really make it memorable for them? And so that was sort of my first foray into really beginning to understand, and I'm still learning, frankly, but just the multitude of really wonderful options as far as like recreation and arts and culture. And it deepened my connection to the area, and it's only accelerated parabolically since I've joined BDCC and been doing this work. So it's been a really great opportunity for me. Great.
Any other questions for Casey? If not, Casey, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Great presentation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And we are a little bit early, so does anybody else have anything good for the good of the order? Any other brags, happy dollars, anything anyone wants to say before I ring the bell and close us out? I'm not seeing anybody jump up and down. All right, so you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.